In the fall of 1958, a retired railroad man in Galesburg, Illinois, walked into a barbershop. He knew no one inside. 40 minutes later, he knew every man in the room. He had no business there. He had come for a haircut he did not need. By the time he left, 2 men had invited him to supper. One had offered to fix his fence. The barber had refused to take his money. He told no jokes. He never raised his voice. What he had was a method, a set of quiet rules drilled into him on a porch before he turned 10. He used them every day until he died. The town turned out for his funeral the way a town turns out for family. They moved through the world differently, not with apps or scripts or self-help books, with habits carved into them by fathers who knew what they were building. Those habits made friends. They kept jobs. They held marriages. They stitched neighborhoods together. We abandoned every one of them. We decided that being interesting mattered more than being interested. This was not charm. This was a craft. Every question had a purpose. Every silence was chosen. Then we called the old way phony. We replaced it with what we called being ourselves. Loneliness has climbed every year since. Number 19 on this list took less than 5 seconds. It made a stranger feel known for years. Number 11 contradicted every modern conversation guide ever written. The men who ignored that advice were the ones strangers trusted on sight. And number 2 built more lifelong friendships than any other behavior in working-class America. It was passed down in a single sentence at a kitchen table. These 25 skills were not about being clever. They were about making another human being feel seen. They were the difference between a man who filled a room with noise and a man who filled it with warmth. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 lost conversation skills every American grandfather knew that made strangers feel like family. Number 25. The name said 3 times. When a stranger told you his name, you used it 3 times. Once right away to catch it. Once in the middle, easy and warm. Once at the goodbye, slow and deliberate. By the 3rd time, the name was yours, and the man felt it. A feed store clerk in Kansas did this in 1951. Every farmer left having heard his own name spoken with care. Those farmers drove past 2 closer stores to buy from him. In a small town, a man's name was the only thing he truly owned. To say it back was to hand him his own dignity. The trick was never remembering the name. The trick was making the name matter. Number 24. The question behind the question. A grandfather never asked, "How are you?" and then accepted the automatic answer, "Fine." He asked the second question. "How is your mother getting on? Did the back trouble ease?" The first question opened the door. The second one walked through it. A deacon in Tennessee did this in 1956. He knew every family's quiet trouble before they spoke it. People told him things they had told no one. One question opened the mouth. The second opened the heart. Number 23. The pause before the reply. When a man finished speaking, you waited, 1 full breath, then you answered. The pause told him you had heard the words, not just waited your turn. A night watchman in Ohio did this in 1949. Men sought him out on their worst nights. He never rushed to fill the air. In a world of men talking over each other, the one who waited was trusted. The pause was not hesitation, it was respect with the volume turned down. Number 22. Remember the small thing. A grandfather remembered the dog's name, the daughter's wedding, the bad knee. He brought it up next time, unprompted. A hardware store owner in Indiana did this in 1953. He remembered a customer's boy had shipped out to Korea. That stranger became a friend for 30 years. The big things everyone remembers. The small things prove you were listening. To remember a man's small thing told him he was not small to you. Number 21. Ask about the work. You asked a man what he did. Then you asked him how he did it. Most men were never asked the second part. A barber in Pennsylvania did this in 1952. He asked a coal miner exactly how the seam was cut. The miner had not spoken 100 words in a year. Every man carries a craft he is proud of. He rarely gets to show it. The man who asks about the work is welcomed back. A job is what a man does. The work is who he is. Number 20. Look up when they walk in. When someone entered, you stopped and looked. Not a glance, a full turn of the head, a moment of the eyes. A diner owner in Missouri did this in 1955. Strangers became regulars after a single breakfast. He looked up for every soul through the door. To be seen on arrival is the oldest welcome there is. The look up cost nothing. It told a man he had been noticed. Number 19. The honest compliment, quietly given. A grandfather did not flatter. He noticed one true thing and said it plain. That is good work. You raised that boy right. A church usher in Georgia did this in 1957. He gave compliments rarely. He meant them every time. Flattery is noise. A true word spoken lowlands where flattery never reaches. The quiet compliment was a gift. Everyone could tell it was real. Number 18. Let the other man be right. When the matter did not truly matter, a grandfather let the other man win. He had nothing to prove. A foreman in Michigan did this in 1950. He let a young worker be right about a small thing. It bought him the man's loyalty for life. A man who must win every exchange has not yet learned something. Most exchanges are not worth winning. To yield the small point was to keep the large friendship. Number 17. The story that carried the lesson. A grandfather did not lecture. He told you about a man he had known. The lesson lived inside the story. You carried it out without feeling taught. A Sunday school teacher in Iowa did this in 1954. One story about a neighbor who lost his farm. It taught more about pride than any sermon. A lecture is forgotten by morning. A story is remembered for life. The grandfathers knew the shortest road to a man's memory. It ran straight through his heart. Here is what nobody says out loud. Roughly 1 in 7 American men today reports having no close friends. Not one. The share of men who can name 6 close friends has collapsed. It was more than half in the 1990s. It is barely a quarter now. This is not because men became unlikable. Somewhere after 1970, something changed. We stopped teaching boys how to enter a room. We started telling them to simply be themselves. But being yourself is a poor plan, not when no one taught you how to be a man among men. We traded a culture of rules for a culture of self-expression. We called it freedom. The grandfathers had no app and no coach. They had a porch, a father, and 40 years of correction. The rules became reflex. The reflex never sent a notification. It just sat in a man and made him easy to be near. Number 16. The handshake that stopped. When you shook a man's hand, you stopped everything. You did not keep walking. You did not look past him. A salesman in Wisconsin did this in 1953. Farmers trusted him before he opened his case. The hand met the hand. The world held still for 2 seconds. A handshake given on the move is no handshake at all. The grandfathers gave the whole hand and the whole moment. A man could feel the difference in his bones. Number 15. Speak of his children first. before the weather, before the work. You asked a man about his children. A barber in Alabama did this in 1956. He led with the question about a man's kids. His chair was never empty. Every father is hungry to speak of his children. He is rarely given the chance. To ask was to open the warmest door a man owns. A man will forget what you said about yourself. He will never forget that you asked about his boy. Number 14, the listening lean. When the talk turned to something that mattered, a grandfather leaned in. His whole body said, "Keep going." A country doctor in Vermont did this in 1948. The lean was half the medicine. Patients told him the real symptom after the lean made it safe. The body speaks before the mouth does. A man leaning in has already promised to stay. The lean said, "I am not going anywhere." It said it without a word. Number 13, never finish his sentence. When a man searched for a word, a grandfather waited. He let him find it. He did not jump in. A school teacher in Maine did this in 1951. Her patience let a shy student finish his own thought. It was why that student spoke at all. To finish a man's sentence is to tell him you have somewhere better to be. To wait is to tell him his thought is worth the wait. The grandfathers waited. It was the cheapest gift and the rarest. Number 12, the walk to the door. When a guest left, you did not say goodbye from your chair. You rose, you walked him to the door, you stood on the step until he reached the road. A widow's brother in Ohio did this in 1955. Every visitor came back. The visit was not over until the man was gone. A goodbye called from a chair is half meant. The walk to the door said the leaving cost you something. That is why the visitor returned. Number 11, admit what you do not know. When a man asked something a grandfather did not know, he said so. "I do not know that one." "Then ask me what I do." A county clerk in North Carolina did this in 1952. People trusted everything else he said. A man who never admits ignorance can never be believed. The grandfathers knew the power of 3 honest words. "I do not know." They bought more trust than any clever answer. Number 10, the shared silence. A grandfather could sit with another man and say nothing. That nothing was comfortable. He did not need to fill it. 2 farmers sat on a porch in Nebraska in 1949. An hour of silence after the harvest. It was deeper than most friendships built on words. Only friends can be quiet together. Strangers must talk. The grandfathers measured a friendship a certain way. By how long 2 men could let the evening pass without a word. Number 9, greet every person, not just the important one. A grandfather greeted the man, the wife, the children, the old aunt in the corner. He skipped no one. A traveling preacher in Arkansas did this in 1953. He greeted the forgotten grandmother in the back room. Whole families opened to him. The room watches who you skip. Greet the least important person first. It tells the room what kind of man you are. The grandfathers greeted everyone. Everyone remembered being greeted. In 1996, a researcher set out to prove something, that modern Americans were better at first impressions than their grandparents. The data refused to cooperate. Strangers form a judgment of trust in a fraction of a second. That judgment can hold for months, even against new evidence. What tips it again and again is the old furniture, eye contact, the handshake, the name spoken back. Studies found something stranger still. Steady, genuine eye contact releases the same chemistry that bonds a mother to a child. Dale Carnegie said it plainly long ago. A person's own name is the sweetest sound in any language. The grandfathers never read the studies. They did not need to. They had run the experiment 10,000 times, on porches and in barbershops. They already knew the result. The rules worked, not because they were old, because they were true. Number 8, the favor offered before it is asked. A grandfather saw the need and met it before the man had to ask. I am headed your way. Let me carry that. A mechanic in Texas did this in 1954. The whole county owed him and loved him for it. To ask for help costs a man his pride. To be offered it costs him nothing. The grandfathers spared men the asking. Men never forgot who had spared them. Number 7, speak well of the absent. A grandfather never ran down a man who was not there. He praised him instead, or said nothing. A store owner in Kentucky did this in 1956. Every man in town trusted him with a secret. The man who speaks ill of the absent tells you something. Exactly what he says of you when you leave. The surest way to be trusted in front of a man. Be loyal to him behind his back. Number 6, the slow yes. When asked for something, a grandfather did not answer instantly. He thought, he nodded, then he said yes. The slowness made the yes mean something. A banker in Oregon did this in 1952. His considered yes was worth more than a quick one. A yes given too fast is worth little. The grandfathers weighed the answer in front of you. When it came, you knew it was real. Number 5, ask the old man his story. When a grandfather met someone older, he asked about his life. Then he listened for an hour. A young veteran in Pennsylvania did this in 1948. He asked an old railroad worker about the early days. He gave the old man his best afternoon in years. The old carry whole worlds. No one asks them to share. To ask is to tell a man his life still matters. The grandfathers asked. The old men loved them for it. Number 4, the touch on the shoulder. When words were not enough, a grandfather laid a hand on a man's shoulder. Once, briefly, then released. A pastor in Mississippi did this in 1955. The hand on a grieving man said what no sermon could. There are moments when speech fails. Only the human hand will do. The grandfathers knew which moments those were. The hand said, I am here. It said it deeper than any word. Number 3, remember where you left off. When a grandfather saw a man again, he picked up the last conversation, right where it had ended. So did your boy get that job? A tavern keeper in Illinois did this in 1953. Men felt known the moment they walked in. To remember where you left off tells a man something. His life kept living in your mind while he was gone. The grandfathers carried men with them between meetings. That is what made the strangers feel like family. Number 2, make the quiet one feel welcome. In every room there is one person saying nothing. A grandfather found him. He drew him in gently. With one easy question he could answer. A union man in Michigan did this in 1954. He turned to the silent new worker. He asked where he was from. That worker stayed for 30 years. The loud take care of themselves. The quiet one is the test of the man. To rescue the silent man from his corner is the kindest thing. One human can do it for another in a room. The grandfathers always found him first. Number 1, ask one question, then listen to the whole answer. That is all. No method, no mirror, no clever follow-up rehearsed while he speaks. Just the plain, unfashionable discipline. Ask one real question, go quiet long enough to hear the whole of it. Every conversation, every person, for years. for decades, until the distance between you and other people closed completely, until strangers began to feel like family inside of 2 minutes. For a grandfather in any town in any year, this was the rule beneath all the others. The name, the lean, the pause, the walk to the door. Every one of them was only this rule wearing different clothes. Ask, then listen. The whole answer. Most men have never once been listened to, not all the way to the end of a sentence. The man who does it becomes unforgettable, and he never knows why. None of these skills required a charm school. None required a confidence coach or a dating app or a subscription to anything. They required attention. They required the willingness to look at another human being honestly, without performance, without an angle. The generation that came up through the Depression and the war understood something. Modern America has spent 50 years trying to unlearn it. That being interesting is not the same as being interested. That being liked is not the same as being trusted. That walking into a room and finding a friend is worthless. Not until you have built the harder skill, the skill of being quiet and paying attention. These were not the habits of phonies. These were the habits of decent men. The moment we forgot them, we traded connection for self-expression. We called it being real. The porch is still there. The chair beside it is still empty. The only thing missing is the man who used to sit in it. The man who asked you one real question, then went quiet, and listened to the whole answer.